Hello and welcome to the Culture Swally, a podcast dedicated to Scottish news and culture. My name is Nicky and I'm joined, as always, by the man who, if I had access to a bank of CCTV cameras, I'd be following him about like William Baldwin's character in Sliver. It's Greg. How are you today, Greg?
I'm very well. I'm back in the Disneyland of the desert, as I think you described it as once, after my 3 weeks back in God's country, or Cumbernauld, as it sometimes referred to. How are you getting on?
And how are you enjoying it? How are you finding being back? You enjoying being back in, not being in Scotland at the moment?
Well, yeah.
With petrol shortages and everything going
on.
Well,
like we were saying just before we started recording, it's pretty grim at home at the moment. Warnings of tough winters and fuel hikes and all sorts of stuff, but no, yeah, it's okay being back in Dubai. I did enjoy. I think that's one of the longest, I think that's probably the longest, sort of constant amount of time I've spent at home in one go since I emigrated to the Middle East over 6 years ago. 3 weeks. It's the first time I've been home in almost 2 years because of the pandemic and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, you fall back into it quite easily, as I'm sure you know.
Now, the question is, and the question that I think everyone wants to know is, did you manage to get any Minger cheese?
No, I didn't. I didn't get the opportunity to go to Aldi, and I actually forgot all about it until I was listening back to our last podcast on the flight home last Thursday, and then I was kicking myself because I really it would have been a good little point to be able to bring up this episode for all the people that were waiting on the edge of their seats with anticipation to see what I thought of Minger cheese.
Well, never mind. Well, we'll put it out to you listeners. If anyone in Scotland has been to Aldi and has sampled Minger cheese, please let us know what it's like, because we can't taste it ourselves, and unfortunately because you're no longer part of the EU, you can't send any to me or anything, so yeah, I don't know what we're going to do there. Oh well, never mind. I was looking forward to a little review, but hey, can't be helped.
I did find something that'll make you laugh. Well, a couple of things. Like the first thing was there hadn't been in Glasgow city centre for a long time, and one day I had to get the train back out to Cumbernauld, and I was walking up past the Glasgow Gallery of Modern Art, where the statue of Wellington is, that always has the traffic cone in his head. And in Exchange Square, there was like a group of young guys standing outside this burger shop, and I was aware of this guy on a kind of mountain bike it was one of these guys that sort of bunny hops up and down stairs and does wheelies and things, and so I sort of walked past him, and as I've walked past him, he's tried to hop up the 3 steps onto where the plinth that Wellington sits on is, and I didn't see, but I heard that he totally wiped out and the unmistakable sound of bike frame connecting with the concrete and stuff. So before I've had the chance to react, the guys over by the burger shop just let out with a massive cheer. Right? Yeah! So I've turned, I turned with the intention of going and helping the guy, but he was back up on his feet before I got anywhere near him. But after the initial cheer, one of the guys shouted over, "Oh, are you alright, mate?"
See, take the piss, but then, slightly bit of concern, checking that the guy's okay. That's you only get that in Glasgow. You wouldn't get that in
You wouldn't get that, no. Friendliest city in the world. But the other thing that I found that you might get a laugh at is, so we've discussed for various different reasons, we've kind of found our way to discussions about the old pornographic magazines, or jazz mags, as we sometimes refer to them as. And I was at home to kind of clear out my dad's house because he's moving in with my stepmom because of his health. And I knew that a couple of such magazines might be secreted somewhere around the house. So and they were in his room. And I found one. Well, I found 3 actually, but the one that I want to tell you about is a really, really old issue of Fiesta. I'll tell you how old it was. Like the 2 clues, there was no date on it, but the price was £1.50, and there was an advert for an Amstrad VHS player on the back. So that gives you some indication as to the age of this magazine. So, I'm not just going to chuck it in the bin. I'll have a wee flick through it before I throw it out. So there's all the usual stuff. Pictures of women in various states of undress. And then there's a page that said something for the ladies, and it's photographs of like 3 or 4 naked guys, but they weren't like, like you might expect on a page like that, Nicky, to see guys who look like you and I, like sort of handsome, well-built, sort of male model types, but these were just like regular sort of early to mid 1980s like dads. Do you know what I mean? They all looked a wee bit like Peter Sutcliffe. Like there was no there was no like shaved chests or like muscle definition of anything. Just like your dad standing there with his cock out, getting his photo taken. Do you know what I mean?
You've got to wonder what goes through someone's head. Like if they've bought an issue of Fiesta and then they're skimming through it and they've thought, oh, there's a page devoted to the ladies. I'm going to send my photo in, and off they go. Or is it a couple have bought that magazine together and are flicking through it and went, oh, look, here's something for the ladies. You can have a look at that page. And then the wife has said, you should send your photos in to that. Yeah. I wonder what the thought process behind that was.
But like they're not even, these guys weren't even sort of posing. They were just sort of standing. I'm pretty sure one of them was like smoking a fag at the same time. It's like he's just come out the shower. He's away to go and get his clothes, and his wife's like, oh wait a minute, just before you go and get dressed, let's take a wee picture for Fiesta. Fire it in just after the readers' wives' pages. It was just a different time, you know what I mean? It's a sort of disturbing insight into the sort of, what's the word, kind of voyeurism of our kind of parents' generation, I guess.
What would you do at that time? I'm not asking, I'm not actually asking you what you would do at that time, but if you were to do that, do you just send the film in, or do you have to go to Boots and get that developed and then just send the photograph in to the magazine? Never thought about that before.
Yeah, because the thing is, there was those pages were just after the classic readers' wives pages. Do you know what I mean? Which was a bit of an experience in itself, but for different reasons, looking through those pages. But I don't know. I mean, that's a good point. Whether it's a picture of your wife posing seductively on the Freeman's catalogue bed sheets, or a picture of like the husband just like having a cup of tea next to the chest of drawers and he's in the buff. But I don't know. I mean, maybe they all had like little dark rooms made up in their sheds at the bottom of the garden or something like that.
Well, there was definitely a business for that back in the day. We should have thought about that
if you were somebody who sent photographs of yourself into Fiesta, whether you were a reader's wife or you were something for the ladies, why don't you write in and tell us what you did, whether you got the picture developed down at Super Snaps or you just sent the film in to Paul Whitehouse. Is it Paul Whitehouse? What's the publisher called? The famous porn publisher? It's not Paul Whitehouse, is it?
I have no idea. It was Paul Raymond.
Paul Raymond, that's it. I'd be interested to know. I mean, that could be a spin-off podcast in its own. I'd love to hear from you.
God, I feel bad. I feel I've set us off in a dark tone by mentioning Sliver at the start of the episode, and it's just led us into talking about absolute smut. I think we should definitely clean things up and have a look at the news.
Cue the jingle.
Hello, this is the Outer Hebrides Broadcasting Corporation, and here is what's been going on in the news.
Okay, Greg, apart from 80s porn, is there anything that you saw in Scotland or have seen in the news for the last few days that has caught your eye?
Well, my first story comes from the January 1981 issue of Shaven Ravers. It doesn't really, I'm only joking. No, my first one comes actually from the Daily Record. Can't see the date on it, but the headline is Scott's mum in stitches after Siri blunder gives son X-rated response when he asks for pictures of Tesco. 5-year-old... I know, who looks up pictures of Tesco? 5-year-old Shawnee McEwen was asking the Apple virtual assistant for help and showing him some pictures of the supermarket Tesco. So basically, Shawnee, his dad Andy, 38, was going to take him to the supermarket to spend his pocket money, lucky Shawnee, but his mum Nicole, 35, was left red-faced when Siri misunderstood the younger's request, and instead of bringing up pictures of Tesco, it showed him pictures of testicles.
Oh wow.
There is a video on the Daily Record website that, she's filmed it. After realising what was happening, Nicole said she bounced out of bed to get the iPad off Shawnee, but realising the primary two pupil had no clue what Siri was talking about, she decided to film it and share the hilarious moment with her friends and family. Speaking to the Daily Record, Nicole said, Shawnee was going to Tesco with his dad to get a magazine with his money. Anytime he goes anywhere, he always wants to see a picture of where he's going, and that's why he asked Siri to show him pictures of Tesco. But Nicole said the hilarity started because Shawnee mispronounces the name of the supermarket giant, saying Tesco rather than Tesco. She added, he has said it that way since he was 2, and I've always thought it was cute. I had never heard it sounding like testicles until Siri said it. In this funny clip shared on social media, Shawnee says, show me a picture of Tesco, and Siri replies, here are some images of testicles from the web. Dad Andy then asks, show me a picture of Tesco, and Siri replies, here are some pictures of Tesco from the web, before Andy hands the iPad back to Shawnee, who again asks for pictures of testicles, and Siri responds again with, here are some pictures of testicles from the web. Nicole shared the hilarious exchange in a short clip on her Facebook page, which quickly gathered hundreds of views and comments from her friends and family. One said, oh no, I'm actually crying with laughter. Another added, please warn his teachers before Andy gets to jail for taking him to Tesco's. I'm actually greeting. This is hilarious, said another. So yeah, we'll put the link on the website, or maybe even on Instagram, and if you want to see the hilarious moment when a wee boy mistakes a supermarket giant for his dad's boss, you can enjoy it at your leisure.
It's not really bad. I've just Googled testicles. I've taken one for the team. And as you would expect, it's just drawings of testicles, medical drawings, or there was a news article about a man who has 10 stone testicles. There's a little image there, but they're covered up.
10 stone?
There's nothing
testicles?
bad. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like...
It's a man with 10 stone testicles, and he's looking very unhappy with himself.
Fucking sure he is.
There's nothing. I mean, first of all, her son has testicles, so it's not like Siri said showing pictures of big tits or up close lady parts. It's something that he has. I'm sure he's seen his dad's boss, and he would have just seen them and probably thought, oh yeah, I've got that. I don't know. Maybe not this stock image of a bull's testicles, but there's nothing bad about it. I mean, Google's not going to throw up hardcore pornography on the image search, so I don't think there was anything hugely. She didn't have to jump out of bed and grab the iPad off him.
I don't ever remember. I remember before I started school. It was, your testicles were never really referred to. Your wee man might be referred to. You go to the toilet, did you clean your wee man? Blah, blah, blah. I don't remember really becoming aware of testicles until I got to school, and people were trying to kick each other in the balls. You know what I mean? I was like, what does that mean? And then I guess obviously I must have worked it out at some point. A bit of self-exploration. Yeah. But I'm not sure I knew what testicles were when I was 5.
No, probably me neither. Obviously, if you'd had access to your dad's copies of Fiesta at the time, then you might have seen one of your local neighbours' testicles in it.
On the For the Ladies page. Yeah, so that's my first story. Out of the mouths of babes and all that. The different types of babes to the ones that you get in Fiesta, obviously. What's your first story this week?
Oh, my first story is about Come Dine With Me last week. It was in Glasgow. I don't know if you were aware of that.
I did see bits of it, yeah.
Okay. So I did watch one episode in particular because it was Daz from Does It Fry that was on it. Are you familiar with Does It Fry at all?
Is this the guy that just tries to see if things can be fried?
It's exactly what he does, yeah. So he has a very successful YouTube channel, so he will deep fry stuff, including like a Big Mac or I think a block of cheese. I think he deep fried like a Boots meal deal sandwich, he'll deep fry Greg's. I think he deep fried Blackpool Rock and stuff. So he just covers it in batter, deep fries it in his kitchen, has a bite of it, and films it all, puts it on YouTube. It's very good. So he was appearing on Come Dine With Me this week. So as you'd expect, his menu, I can read through his menu for you. So the guests were less than impressed. I'm not going to read a full news article on this one because I watched it actually happen, so I can pretty much tell you what he did. So for his starter, Darren served deep fried chicken nuggets and caviar. So he went and he did say he spent £60 on this caviar, and he made the chicken nuggets himself, homemade, deep fried them in crispy batter. with the deep fried caviar. Let's just say the guests were less than delighted with this. For his main course, he served deep fried lasagna. He went to the effort of making a lasagna from scratch. I mean, if you're making a lasagna for 5 people, you usually need more than 1 packet of mince, 1 carrot, 1 onion, and 1 tin of tomatoes. Yeah. But that was all he had. But as he said when he was cooking it, it's fine because I'm going to be covering it in batter anyway, so they'll get more with the batter. He served this on 1 single lettuce leaf, which he also deep fried. But he didn't cover it in batter. He just put it in the oil. Took out this soaking wet lettuce leaf, put it on the plate, and then put this chunk of lasagna on top. And then, as you can imagine, for his dessert, he served a deep fried Mars bar with some ice cream, which he didn't deep fry. I think he missed a trick, not deep frying the ice cream, because that is obviously a delicacy as well. The guests were pretty horrified by this. And well, a couple of them actually found it funny. And, you know, they were like, I can't eat this. This is disgusting. You know, one did say, I really would have preferred it if you hadn't deep fried this. There was one woman that was quite outraged, saying this is just a joke. You can't do this. And you know, I think she did say at the end that she ended up getting a Chinese afterwards. Like, she hardly ate any of it. Of course, what do you do in this situation? If you're on Come Dine With Me, do you just make sure the alcohol is flowing? Yeah. And you get your guests pissed, so they give you a good score. Yeah, Daz didn't serve any alcohol at all. He only served iron brew in champagne flutes. So the guests drank iron brew out of champagne flutes all evening and had their deep fried menu. So unfortunately, it wasn't plain sailing for Daz. I think he ended up with 14 points overall. Right. One of his guys did actually spat the starter out into his napkin and says it's just really salty and really chewy. Darren spoke of his experience to the Daily Record, so I can give his quote. And he said, when they had the first dish of chicken nuggets and caviar, their faces kind of dropped. I think they knew from that point that they weren't eating good food that night. The lasagna kind of worked, but unfortunately, the kitchen roll stuck to the bottom lost me some points. And that was true, because he did obviously pad it dry with kitchen roll, but yeah, there was still chunks of kitchen roll there. Right. And he said, my ice cream scoop broke, so serving up the ice cream was an absolute nightmare. I also completely underestimated how much ingredients I'd need for 5 people, so I only brought 1 carrot for them all. But regardless of the score, Darren said that he had a great time. I loved every second of it. I went there to have a laugh. I walked away laughing. I can't complain. And he was very true when even in his opening interview, he did say, I'm your worst nightmare to be on this, because I do not care about winning. I'm just here to have a laugh. And he certainly did. In terms of deep frying everything, and probably to get exposure for his YouTube channel as well. Yeah. So I'd imagine a few people have been watching his videos since his appearance on that and been enjoying seeing him frying various things. I think there was a couple of things like this kind of broke out during the start of lockdown, because there's the other Scottish guy who does the wraps. I don't know if you've seen them, in terms of he takes anything, he'll take a whole Chinese and put it in a wrap and put it on his George Foreman, and then he cuts it in half and shows it to the camera and then takes a bite. He'll do stuff, putting a fish and chip supper in a wrap and with curry sauce or something, grilling it for 5 minutes. Then it's fascinating viewing, because you are kind of watching it thinking, I wonder if this is going to work. And so I have watched a few of Daz's videos before, and you are thinking, you're a nutter, you're deep frying a Big Mac. And then when he bites into it, he's like, it's delicious.
I'll have to watch. I mean, I am aware of it. I don't think I've ever seen any of his videos. I'm not sure how I'm aware of it. I am quite intrigued, though, as to how he managed to deep fry caviar, because they're tiny wee balls. So they're just tiny, tiny wee deep fried balls of caviar.
It's going back to the testicles again. I'm not sure. I didn't pay a huge amount of attention. I think he maybe did clump them together. Right. It was maybe a spoonful of caviar, because it was from a jar, the little tin. So he maybe just had a spoonful and maybe dunked it in the batter. And then, it's a hell of a waste. He says he spent 60 quid on the caviar, but
no one ate it.
Nobody really ate it. Yeah. No, because that was the one guy who had a bit of the chicken nugget, and he's like, I can't really eat this. And Dad's like, have the caviar. And he did. And then that's when he had to spit it into his napkin. So never mind. That was his attempt on Come Dine With Me. So all the best, Daz. Yeah, good on you. So what else have you seen this week, Greg?
Okay, well, my next one it's along the same lines as some other stories that we've had on the Swally about perhaps maybe not misjudged tattoos, but like somewhat unusual tattoos. So off the top of my head, we've had the girl that got Greg's the Baker tattooed on her hip or her arse, can't quite remember. We had the guy who got the Social tattooed on his chest, but it was a wrong logo or something. He was hoping that it would get him free entry for the Social in Exchange Square.
That's right, yeah.
Stories. Well, I don't know how familiar you are with the Scottish company Megabus. I know you've not lived in Scotland for a long time. For our overseas listeners, Megabus is a sort of cheap bus service, I suppose. It runs from Scotland. You can get the bus from like Glasgow or Edinburgh or Aberdeen all the way to London. It's pretty cheap. It costs about 10 or 15 quid. I've never done it, but apparently the buses are reasonable, quite comfortable and whatnot. So the headline comes from the Scottish Sun on the 24th of September, and it says, "Fair play, Scots Megabus fan gets the coach company's logo tattooed in his arm. Isaac Gray reckons he's the only person in the world daft enough to get the unique artwork of the chubby driver drawn on him." I don't think anybody's going to contest that. Picture of Isaac here. He's had the logo tattooed on the kind of bottom of his bicep. The sort of like kind of here. I don't know why I'm showing you this, and I'm showing Nicky where it is. On the back of his arm.
Great podcasting.
Yeah, on the back of his upper arm. The tattooist has not stayed in the lines when he's been colouring the tattoo in. He said that Isaac apparently dreamt up the inky tribute as a joke in a way that might win him some free bus travel. And he's obviously hasn't read the article about the guy who tried it at the Social. Isaac from Dundee said, "Most folk I've shown it to think it's a bit loopy, but I've been on so many megabuses going to and from gigs that it seemed like a really good idea. It's a bit of fun, and I absolutely love showing it off to people and seeing what the reaction is. No one can quite believe I got it done. Tattoos shouldn't all be serious." He splashed out £160 on the tattoo, and he sought out a particular artist in Aberdeen because he liked her style. It took about 3 hours, but Isaac had only one big request when it came to transferring the fat driver from a coach to his body. He explained, "I wanted him to look a bit less creepy than he does on the side of the bus. I think that's your free bus travel." Humped now, Isaac. His eyes and mouth are a bit shady in the original. I wanted my one to look a bit more happy and welcoming. Tesco worker Isaac grew up in Huntly, Aberdeenshire, and was born a girl. He came out as trans when he was 14 and became a target for bullies. His only escape was going to rock gigs in bigger towns and cities in the cheap Megabus, where tickets start as low as £1, made that happen. He said, "When I was getting on a Megabus and going to see a band, I was living. In the weeks leading up to that, I was just surviving. I had all sorts of horrible things said and done to me. It was pretty rough. The Megabus was my escape, so it made sense to get the tattoo. It's really a symbol of me getting out there and making a brand new life for myself." After 2 years of talking about the artwork, Isaac and his non-binary sibling Han, who's 18, got matching tattoos a few weeks ago. Isaac had not had the nerve to show it to a driver yet, but he's hoping it might open up a brand new world of bus travel. He joked, "They might treat us like VIPs, but I very much doubt it. The first time we were on a bus since getting the tattoos, it broke down and we were late for the gig, but that's part of the adventure. We'll always love the Megabus." Astonished bosses at the bus firm coughed up free travel for Isaac to applaud his devotion, so it worked.
Oh, wow.
Megabus managing director Mark Venables said, "Wow, I'd be amazed if any other mega fans can beat that. We love to see such levels of dedication, and we'd be happy to offer Isaac a free return journey on one of our services to any of our destinations in the UK. He definitely deserves it." So he's getting one free trip. Our passion is keeping people connect through great value travel, and we're hoping to hear that Isaac enjoys his journeys. We're pleased to hear that Isaac enjoys his journeys on the Megabus so much. I hope to see him board a Megabus soon so I can see his tattoo in the flesh. So there you go. Now, I wonder if he went to the same tattoo artist that our mutual friend goes to in Aberdeen for all his illustrations.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's a very colourful tattoo, that's for sure. So it's just below the bicep. So if he's flexing his muscles, does that mean that the Megabus driver does the truffle shuffle?
He starts to look a bit like Benny Hill, I think, when he... and he flexes his muscles.
I mean, I can see if it brings back good memories of something, and as he says, when he was going to gigs and stuff, and, I've got some great memories of going to gigs and going places, but I'm not going to get a tattoo of I don't even know, I can't even think of what bus I would have got to, but, first bus Aberdeen tattoo on me or something.
Or Bluebird.
Yeah, I think it's a strange one, but, people get strange tattoos all the time, We've got Greg's. We had the guy a couple of weeks ago that had the rolling square.
Absolutely, yeah.
In his thigh to cover up an ex-girlfriend's name. But yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely a conversation starter, that's for sure. Whereas the other tattoos that we've kind of covered on the Swally have been on the inner thigh or on the arse or on the chest, whereas this is actually on his arm. Yeah. So you're going to think it's going to be on display. So it's definitely a conversation starter. I suppose if he gets fed up and it doesn't come to fruition, if he gets pissed off or he has bad service on Megabus in future, he could always just colour it in, and then he's got the fat controller from Thomas the Tank Engine.
Or he could get like a full Scottish breakfast, a picture of a full Scottish breakfast tattooed over his arm to cover like his failed relationship with the Megabus people.
It's the natural thing, isn't it? When you're thinking of a cover up, you think, I'm thinking breakfast.
Yeah, well, that's that's old Isaac from originally from Huntly, now residing in Dundee. What's your next story this week?
Well, my next story is something that's kind of pretty obvious to us, but I wonder if it is obvious to other people, our international listeners around the world. And we do say this word. We don't say it a lot on the Swally, but we do say it a fair bit, I would think. And you never realise if it does offend people. But this latest study, this is from the Scottish Sun on the 23rd this week. Scots TV viewers don't find the C word offensive and think it can be used as a term of endearment. Now, I've often said this, that Scottish, we use swearing as punctuation and as a term of endearment. So this was a study for the official broadcasting watchdog Ofcom, and they found that Scottish people are more relaxed about hearing the strongest swear word on your screens. However, they recognise that although it can be an affectionate or endearing term, they still think it's quite offensive and should only be used after the 9 p.m. watershed. I'm glad to hear that we're not going to be seeing it on CCTV or anything anytime soon. I'd love that if on the chase Bradley Walsh, oh, you stupid cunt. That's, I'm not going to do that. So yeah, they studied 600 people and asked them which swear words that they thought created dramatic impact or brought humour and reflected real life. One man in his 50s said, and he's from Scotland, he said, the C word is probably the strongest in society and it's developed to be a strong word. But in my day, it could be used as everyday language, and not used offensively. You can be a clever cunt. And I don't think, where we live, it's seen as serious. So they did ask more people about this, and they've decided that the C word is viewed as, as I say, the strongest swear word, but people have mixed views about it. So for example, they felt that cunt could be used in reflecting reality or when trying to portray strong negative emotion, particularly in programmes where such language would be expected.
River City, for example.
Yeah, I think there is a time and place. So, and even last year, the BBFC gave a stand-up show by Billy Connolly a 15 certificate after ruling that his use of cunt, and I'd imagine he'd used it quite a lot, was not aggressive and it was part of his trademark style. So they are developing that concept that I think it's very much if it's used in an aggressive manner that people have a bit of a worry about it. Yeah. And they found the performance, which was released in cinemas, featured very frequent, very strong language, including 10 uses of the C word, but said it didn't merit an 18 certificate. They said that Connolly's swearing was not aimed at anyone and audiences would be very familiar with his style. Yeah, effectively, we love the C word and we don't find it offensive. So that's not really a news story, is it? Everyone kind of knew that as well.
It was quite funny when I was at home. My father's he's not anymore, but he was in the hospital, which is one of the reasons I was back in Scotland. And I would never have described my father as a particularly sweary person. If it's just us boys, he might be a bit swearier than polite society, and certainly around the ladies, he keeps it clean. But he was in quite a lot of pain last week and was on quite strong pain meds. And my stepmother is not a fan of swearing and perhaps hates the C word more than any other word. And because my dad last week was a wee bit groggy with the painkillers, and he was talking to me, and there was a guy in the room across from my dad's who I think was a bit doolally, and we could he couldn't get up and out of bed himself and stuff. He needed assistance, and he was like shouting and swearing at the nurses. Apparently, I'd never heard him. I heard him shouting a bit. I never heard him shouting at the staff. And my dad was telling me how especially at night, this guy really shouting and bawling and shouting and swearing at the nurses. But he's not describing it as I'm describing it. He's like, and that fucking cunt across there. And my stepmom was like, Gordon, can you stop swearing so much? Sorry. I tell you, all cunt and night shouting at the nurses. It's just, he would immediately apologise and then completely forget, I think, who his audience was. I was like, maybe just rein it in a bit there.
It's Probably just at the end of his tether with it all, so it's just all coming out, unfortunately.
No, there was other things he was talking about where he was just letting his C-word flag fly quite easily. Oh well. No, yeah. I think we had on the Angel Share episode, there was a big thing about the BBFC and the word cunt. Remember? I think Ken Loach of Nuneaton in the Midlands is a fierce defender of our right to use the word in the correct context. So
yeah, I think it was Sweet 16. I think there was a bit of an outrage about that.
Yeah.
In terms of the level of swearing, and it was, as you say, Ken Loach had said, it's just the way that people talk from that area and that age group. So it shouldn't really be deemed as offensive. It is just the way we talk. So yeah, don't know. Anyway, as I say, it's not a massive news story, but news nonetheless.
Well, I've got one more very quick story. I'll run through it as quickly as I can. Again, it comes from the Scottish Sun, the 25th of September, this one. The headline is, "What's the catch? Glasgow magnet fishers," which I'd never heard of magnet fishers before I read this article. Glasgow magnet fishers find a black bag full of mobile phones and a book with a list of names in the River Clyde. It's on TikTok under Glasgow_magnet_fishing, if you want to go and check it out. The video shared on the group's TikTok channel showed them uncovering a bag at Dalmarnock Bridge before emptying it to find various phones and an address book. In the video, a member of the group appears to be pulling something up on a rope before unveiling a black bag containing 8 different mobiles, which appear to have been damaged by the water. The group appear to be fishing from the A749, also known as Dalmarnock Bridge in Rutherglen. The video, which was uploaded on Monday, has racked up thousands of views online and garnered much attention from people sharing their theories on the discovery. One viewer commented, "Tell me you found a dealer without telling me you found a dealer." Another commented, "I know a few people from Dalmarnock who'll be freaking out at this video." After being bombarded with various comments asking what they did with the find, the fishermen confirmed that they put the phones in the book back into the water. Anybody thinking of trying magnet fishing, just be warned, the Ministry of Defence have warned against the dangers of the practice, saying in September 2018 that army bomb disposal teams were regularly called out due to strange finds. Members of the Glasgow magnet fishing group have previously hit the headlines for finding an unexploded grenade in the River Clyde. A gun was also recovered by the group from the same location, Dalmarnock Bridge, back in December 2020. So just if you are magnet fishing, maybe see what you've got before you whack it on social media, and don't tell anybody where you live.
So we're presuming it's a drug dealer or a hitman, or someone who has a lot of phones and doesn't want to have them falling into the wrong hands.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the police are probably quite interested in having a look at those phones and seeing what, if any, data can be pulled off them. But the magnet guys have chucked them back in the River Clyde, so if the Police Scotland want them, they'll have to get their frogmen out.
I'm sure they won't have any trouble with that.
Do you remember the story we had? I think my favourite Swally story we've ever had is your one that you found about the guy finding the safe full of condoms and pornography and then Leith River in Edinburgh. That was a belter.
There you go. That's just what your dad needed. He needed a safe to keep his porn in, and he would have been sorted.
In my dad's defence, he had completely forgotten that he had them, which is plausible considering how old they obviously were. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, the last thing I've got, it's literally just come up since we've been recording, and it's there's been a sign put up in a car park in the West Highlands. It's a car park in the A86, and it's been a bit of a nightmare in terms of people leaving litter in this area. And it's a little car park stroke lay-by, so, people do chuck things out the window, or they'll stop there and just empty their, empty bottles and stuff there. So there has been a sign put up, and the sign does say, "Please take your rubbish with you," but then it then goes on to say, "I don't know who you are, I don't know what you want. If you're looking for a dustbin, I can tell you that I don't have one. But what I do have is a very particular set of skills. Skills I have acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. If you take your rubbish with you, that'll be the end of it. I will not look for you, I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you, and I will find you. Smile, you're on CCTV." So there you go. That's a nice little story. Little signs put up in a car park. And that leads quite well onto our topic in terms of CCTV. But first, let's have a word from our sponsors.
Spend a breakaway weekend at the gateway to the Trossachs, the Rob Roy Motel. There's a dinner dance on Saturday night, bed breakfast and Sunday lunch for only £23 per person. Or visit us during the week. There's a Scots night on Tuesdays, a Cayley on Wednesdays, and a cabaret dance on Thursdays. Coach parties welcome. For further information, phone the Rob Roy Motel on Aberfoyle 245.
So, Greg, it was your choice this week. So what are we going to be talking about on the Swally today?
Well, the last time we were on, I mentioned that it's rare that one of us picks something that neither of us had seen. I didn't realise that you hadn't seen this when I picked it, but this week we're going to talk about the 2006 psychological thriller Red Road, directed by Andrea Arnold and starring Kate Dickie, Tony Curran and Martin Compston and Natalie Press. It tells a story of a CCTV security operator who observes through her monitors a man from her past. It is named after and partly set at the Red Road flats, or that are no longer there, in Balornock in Glasgow, Scotland. I should point out that this is the third and final film in our unintentional Martin Compston trilogy. When I picked the film, I didn't realise until I was talking about it on the last episode of the Swally that Martin Compston was in it. So we're not like, it was not intentional. But we've done The Wee Man. The week before that we did The Legend of Barney Thompson, and now we've got the Red Road. So we're going to give Wee Martin a break for a few months. The movie is actually the first film in a project called Advance Party, in which it's a projected trilogy following a set of rules dictating how the films will be written and directed. They were all to be filmed in Scotland using the same characters and cast, but each film to be made by a different first-time director. So, as I mentioned, I hadn't seen this before. You hadn't seen it before. It's a movie that I'd always meant to get round to watching. I remember when it was released. I'm quite familiar with the Red Road flats, just not from ever being in them. I don't think I was ever in them, but I certainly passed them a lot when I was a kid and as an adult. But what about you? What did you think of this film?
Yeah, well, as I say, I hadn't seen it at all, and I wasn't really aware. I don't remember it coming out, so I don't know how it passed me by, but it wasn't until quite a few years later I realised of its existence. And as you say, it's one of those films that I'd always thought, yeah, I need to watch that one day, because it does sound very interesting. It's got a good cast and a good director, so it'd always been in my mind that I need to watch it, but for some reason never had until now. I don't quite know where to start with this film, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a very slow burning, tense, don't have a fucking clue what's going on type of film.
Yeah.
But it does have you captivated. I think the performances are fantastic, and we will get round to speaking about that. It's a very much it's a kind of type of film I like, because it is a very slow burning. It keeps you thinking, it keeps you guessing. You have to pay an enormous amount of detail as to what's going on. And the way the storyline is given to you, it's very much drip fed to you in the smallest little details and very small clues that you have to kind of pick up. And genuinely, it's not until the last kind of 20 minutes that you actually discover what the entire film has been about, really. Yeah. And I really loved the little hints, and it does make you, because you are thinking about other things in terms of you're coming up with your own, well, I know what's going to happen next, but, and then it completely doesn't. Yeah, really enjoyed this film, and it was really, I thought I don't know where I'm going with that. Like I thought it put across a very big concern, I think, about CCTV and people being able to watch you and being able to follow your every movement. But yeah, I did. I can't deny I really enjoyed this film. It had me kind of gripped whilst I was watching it. Very uncomfortable to watch in places and very tense, but yeah, really enjoyed. What about yourself?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, I had a similar experience to you, and I hadn't read much of the synopsis before I saw it, because I thought I knew what it was about. I thought it was going to be a bit like, funnily enough, you touched on it, you joked about it earlier. I thought it was going to be a little bit like Sliver, if I'm honest, like maybe a similar sort of plot. I think probably, I had this like I said, the same sort of experience as you. At points, I thought I knew. All right, now I know why she's following this guy. Now I know now I know why she's doing that, blah, blah, blah. And like you said, it's not until like the last sort of 10 or 15 minutes that it all becomes clear. But, I got to the end of the film. It wasn't until I got to the very end of the film. And I think the ending, without spoiling it right now for anybody, is quite rewarding. The ending's good. And it's one of these films that you don't realise how much you're enjoying it when you're watching it. But then when the credits roll, you think, that was really good. You sort because I think you touched on it. It sort of demands that you pay a lot of attention, and it's intriguing, because Kate Dickie, she's in every single scene. It's her journey. The camera's with her all the time. We never see these other characters in scenes without her. It's a bit like like 8 Mile with Eminem. He's in every single scene, all the way through the movie. That's not a great comparison.
Just compared this to 8 Mile.
No, but just the way that the story's told, it's not a great comparison, I suppose. That job of monitoring. What do they call those cameras in the UK? Those CCTV cameras, like kind of public safety cameras or something like that.
I'm not sure. I thought it was just CCTV, but maybe they do have a
maybe
as you say,
I'm not
public
sure.
safety.
I made a note near the beginning of the film. Is that a good job to have? Is it a good job? Is it like just 8 hours of just watching multiple screens and looking out for people in trouble or people breaking the law and stuff? I'm not sure. I did notice that none of the screens had the time or date on them, which kind of renders their recordings as evidence and absolutely useless.
I think that was purposely left out of the film because it was probably too difficult to put that into the edit, if you know what I mean, in terms of the way. So I think that was purposely left off. I agree. I think it's a very valuable tool that you have, and you do spend, I don't know what the percentage is, but probably at least 15-20% of the film, if not more, is seen through the CCTV cameras. And it's a very powerful way of viewing, because you are seeing exactly what Jackie is seeing in terms of this. So I think it's very well done in that manner. And it's not something that you don't get used to. You quickly get used to seeing this in the CCTV.
Yeah.
And for your point, is that a good job? I think you can kind of see from the offset that Jackie almost has a relationship with some of the characters that she sees on a regular basis. So you've got the cleaning woman in the window. And that was one of my first notes. I'm like, okay, she's abusing her power a bit here. Should she be spying into windows? We're looking at that. But you see that she often looks at her at night. And then, of course, there's the guy with the dog, which is effectively one of the first and last shots of the film, really, the dog. And she's obviously building up a relationship, not with him, but in her head. She's checking up on him and seeing what he's doing and following along. And you wonder how many people like that she does have that she looks in on a regular basis.
Yeah. No, I think, and it's a good way of establishing her character. Like to your point, we see her, she obviously keeps an eye on these people and she has a kind of relationship. We see her, she goes home to an empty house. She lives by herself. She's in this sort of strange relationship with Jamie from The Office. Not from The Office, from The Thick of It. I forget the actor's name, but she's having an affair with this married guy, and it's not exactly a tender kind of relationship. It's a kind of practical, sort of sordid relationship, really. And then when she sees Tony Curran's character and she recognises him on the camera, it sort of gives her this overwhelming purpose. Where there's a scene where she's so focused on what he's doing, she misses a girl getting stabbed at the bus stop. And I think what her colleague says, it's not like you to miss something like that, and she's like, I was watching something else happening and everything. And I mean, I've seen Kate Dickie in quite a lot of things. I mean, I think the first thing I ever saw her in was, I know you were a fan of this as well, Tinseltown, back in, must have been the late 90s or maybe the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And she's been on the Swally before. She was in Filth, but I've never seen her sort of lead a movie like this. And she's absolutely fantastic. It's a really reserved performance. It's not until towards the end, when she confronts Tony Curran's character Clyde, that this kind of steely determination and almost ruthlessness sort of snaps, and and this emotion starts to pour out of her and things. She was I think she got the Scottish BAFTA, best actress in a Scottish film at the Scottish BAFTAs in 2006, and it's well deserved. I mean, I feel that, I don't know, I kind of get the feeling that not enough people have seen this movie, because if they had, you would think that you would see it everywhere.
And I think it's the performance, as you say, she delivers, and her character goes through so many kind of transitions. As you say in the beginning, you can tell she's very dedicated to her job and very focused. And exactly as you say, her colleague says, it's not like you. You get the impression that that's basically what she lives for.
Yeah.
And you do find out as time goes on, she doesn't really have many friends. She obviously hasn't spoken to her family as such for quite a while. And that's the way they drip feed the information to you. You don't find out her name until she opens the wedding invitation and it's addressed to Jackie. It's never mentioned in terms of that. And when she goes to the wedding, and instantly her sister-in-law says, "Oh, this is my sister-in-law." And you're like, "Sister-in-law? Wait, okay, right. So she must have been married to husband. So what's happened to him?"
Yeah.
There's obviously the kind of animosity between her and her father-in-law that you're kind of wondering what the hell's going on. You only find out that Clyde was in prison because of a newspaper headline that she digs out, and you're not sure what's been going on. You only find out that she's linked to him with the phone call from the solicitor, so that then well, there must have been some sort of involvement. She's obviously done something, and he's obviously done something to her in that way. And then even when her father-in-law comes round towards the end of the film, and he just says, "Oh, well, shortly after the, and then just tails off," and you're left wondering what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
What is this big mystery? But you're gripped, and it's fascinating. But then her character changes, as you say, with this steely determination that she's out to. She says she has a purpose, and she gives it her all, and effectively mucks up her job. And then towards the end, well, the end of the film, which we'll come to discuss later, it's a completely different composure of her character as well. Very powerful performance, and I thought she was great. I mean, to be fair, I thought the whole cast was great as well.
The thing is, in the story, there's a lot of, going back to what you were saying, earlier, we're trying to work out what has happened between her and this guy, Clyde, played by Tony Curran. There's loads of red herrings. You know what I mean? Like we find out that he's a bit of a shagger around the community. Like the scene when she kind of follows him into the cafe, and the waitress in the cafe's kind of chatting him up and all that sort of thing. Then we see her watching him outside the school. So you think, right, so maybe he's abused her when she was younger or something like that, or maybe she's abused like her daughter who's maybe committed suicide. Your brain starts going all these potential scenarios, and then and as Clyde's character develops, you see sort of some quite unpleasant elements of his character, but also some quite reasonable elements of his character as well, where he's I guess we'll sort of come on to Tony Curran inadvertently there, but this is like another astonishing performance from him. He's such a good actor, totally believable as this ex-prisoner, bit of a wide boy trying to sort of make a few quid, enjoy being out of prison after 6 years, and he's obviously attracted to her, thinks that he recognises her. So you're thinking, well, if he has abused her, surely we'd recognise her. Or if he's abused her and he doesn't recognise her, then he's just the worst. How many people has he abused? He must be a horrible guy. But then she seems to be receptive to some of his advances, especially obviously there's the scene near the end, which is pretty shocking. I wasn't expecting that scene. Oh, I'm sure we'll talk about it in a little while, but it's a really, really, really clever script.
Tony Curran, the way I could describe his performance is when he is with another character, like Martin Compston's character, or when he's in a cafe or something, when he's walking around the neighbourhood, he has got this kind of swagger of, as you say, a bit of a wide man. And when you see him on his own and she's following him on CCTV, or when she's following him when he's going to the laundrette and then to the cafe and stuff, and even when he's at the school and you see him on his own there, he's got this kind of, it's almost like a haunted kind of emptiness inside him. Like he has to give this big character bravado in front of the guys and in the estate, but when he's on his own, he's just got this like missing kind of soullessness about. And then when he's with her, and as you said, towards kind of the end of the film, and when he's in the bar with her, you're kind of thinking he's a bit of a wide boy, bit of an odd. But when he gets her back to the flat, his character kind of changes again, and he kind of has this, it's almost like he's attempting to recover himself. When she sees the photo of his daughter and the way he talks, it's so, you can tell he's trying to do good, and he delivers a speech really towards the end saying it's so difficult trying to go straight and trying to be the good guy, but you can tell he really does genuinely want to not go back to jail, and he does genuinely want to try and build a relationship with the person he was going to see at the school. It's just such a powerful performance from him as well. As you say, he's just a fantastic actor and so believable, and just watching those two together on screen, it was just chemistry, and it was so good. Yeah,
it was brilliant. I mean, this is the second Tony Curran movie we've done, the last one being over a year ago, I think, we did Calibre Calibra. Or maybe about a year ago we did Calibra or Calibri. I'm not sure how we're supposed to say it.
I think it's Caliber.
Okay, there you go. I think before we got on to Martin Compston, the flats themselves are as important, I think, to the plot of the movie. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw the Redwood Flats close up, but they quite an intimidating building because they very, very tall. Like they were built in 1968. They were for a little while. They were the highest residential buildings in Europe. Not for long. They built some in Birmingham, which beat them. They were demolished between 2012 and 2015. The last one being blown up to commemorate the opening of the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. 2014. I mean, geez, only in Scotland. I think a lot of these high flats in countries all over the world, they were all over the UK rather, they were built to combat kind of overcrowding in tenements and slums and things like that. So probably when they were brand new, they'd been quite really nice, a nice place to live. But like a lot of high flats everywhere, sort of deteriorated over time, didn't stand up to the elements all that well, and became a bit rough and ready. And it feels, I mean, like I say, I don't know that I was ever in the Red. I don't think so. I'd have to ask my dad if he ever knew anybody who lived in there, maybe that, but I don't think I ever was. I've certainly been in high flats in Glasgow before, but not those ones. But the movie feels like it's filmed entirely, all the interior shots are in the flats. You know what I mean? I could be wrong about that. I couldn't find any information that sort of confirmed or otherwise, but like the scene when Martin Compston's character and Kate Dickie and Natalie Press are having a drink and Martin Compston opens the window to let them feel how windy it is. That feels like it's been filmed in a Redwood flat, Yeah.
I think, yeah, probably.
Yeah. I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole about the flats. I won't go on too much about them, but there was a game that they used to play, that the kids used to play, that you'll probably get a kick out of, called Giant Headers, where somebody would drop a football from one of the flat windows and people in the grounds had to head it.
That's going to do you some damage, surely.
Well, I guess
the ball's coming down at that speed from that height.
Apparently, the lifts weren't big enough to get a coffin into, so undertakers would have to stand the coffin up with the departed person inside it. And apparently, on the really high floors, and near the top floors, some tenants said that when they filled the bath, if it was windy, they could see the water sloshing about because the wind would just blow right through the materials they're made from. So, but it used to great effect. And I think the title of the movie, Red Road, sort of sits nicely with the sort of enigmatic until the end sort of plot, because you go in thinking it's going to be about the flats, and it's I think they are important to the plot, but the flats aren't a component of the plot.
No, but I think it's very, as you say, it's pretty much one of the main characters, really, and it does convey a huge sense of the area in terms of it's run down, there's graffiti everywhere with the cast iron things that Tony Curran pumps the waitress from the cafe up against, and it just looks dirty and not a very nice area. Even the cafe and the pubs that they go to, it just all adds to getting across the kind of lifestyle that these guys are living. And as Martin Compston's character says, I wish we always had money, and they really are struggling. I guess they're ex-cons. They're really trying to just scrape a living, really. Yeah, so it really does convey that emotion in terms of the setting and the area, and I think the audience does get an ideal picture of that.
Yeah, I have to say that I had a bit of dog anxiety a couple of times in the movie. Like the first bit when we saw, but near the beginning, when you see the guy looking in the shop window with his bulldog that starts to get a bit poorly towards, thankfully, by the end of the film he's got a new dog. We don't have to see the sad departure of his former dog. But then at the party, when Martin Compston gets the wee dog out of his jacket and it's running around and all that, and I'm like, oh no, someone's going to throw that dog out the window or something like that. It's gonna. Yeah. But thankfully, no dogs were harmed, neither fictitiously or otherwise, in the making of the film.
No, and that's the thing, because you're kind of wondering, even as you say, as the film's starting, and you see the guy with the bulldog, and Kate Dickie starts smiling, you get the idea she's obviously been watching them for a while, and you're wondering what's going to happen here. And then when he gets to the traffic lights and you see him with the other dog, my instant thought was, are they a way to go and fight these dogs against each other? And this is going to be like the first thing she sees. But thankfully, no, it was was all friendly, and you just find out that the dog is slightly unwell, and that's where you get the first instance of Kate Dickie's character following these people that she's watching and getting an insight into their life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was terrified for the little dog in the flat as well when they're feeding it dog food off the floor, off a manky kitchen floor. Can't be good.
Did you notice the scene that you mentioned before when Tony Curran has sex with the waitress from the cafe behind the pub or whatever it was behind? Did you notice that she seemed to be just finishing off like a battered fritter or something like that?
I did, yes. As who says romance is dead, eh?
I mean, like that area around there, Billarnick, I know it a bit. Like my cousin lives near there, but he lives in new houses a bit further up towards Auchinnairn and Bishopbriggs. But the pub where they go, the Broomfield Tavern, it's right beside a petrol station. I've never been in it because it's a sort of pub when you see it from the outside, you would say, I'm fucking never going in there. But I've driven past it. It's on a big roundabout, so I've driven past it on my way to visit my cousin before. But I have to say that the scenes in the pub were perhaps the least believable in the sense that the bartender had to be the friendliest bartender in Glasgow. He's pouring people pints, saying, enjoy your drink, enjoy. There's no way that guy works in a Broomfield Tavern.
He's only really nice to Jackie though, isn't he? But when he does say, are you lost?
Yeah, he does.
Which, again, as you say, you probably wouldn't be. You'd be like, the fuck you want? And I like the way she just asks for a white. Doesn't say white or red.
Yeah.
And then he just produces a little
bottle of wine.
Little miniature bottle of wine, because obviously they're not going to have house wine in the in the Broomfield Tavern, are they?
Blows the dust off a little bottle of wine. Here you go, doll. Well, like the guy that he's serving just before he serves Jackie, he said when he passes the pints over, he says, right, enjoy. And then he says to her, enjoy your drink. I was a bit kind of suspending reality a bit there, I think. Did you notice that there are two instances in this movie where guys remove condoms and just throw them on the ground?
Yes, that's true, because there's obviously a significance in the first time you see the condom being removed and then put in the sort of doorwell, and then being thrown outside. So yeah, I did think that's very, they've lingered on that for a little bit. Why? We obviously know they're having sex, so to remove that. But yes, of course, later on, it's just, taken off and just thrown kind of on the table at the side or on the ground.
Table.
So that's lovely. So I did wonder, but now you think about it, there is a significance to seeing that first shot later on in the film as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very good.
I mean, those whole scenes with Paul Avery, do you know what I mean? Basically, picks her up from her work, goes right in and picks her up from her work, drives her up to wherever, Campsie or somewhere like that in a field, lets his dog out for a run while he has sex, and then just flings the condom down, shouts the dog in, and drives her back.
And then you get the impression this is obviously a regular occurrence, because he does say, he'll see you in 2 weeks then. So every fortnight they're meeting up for a little bit of Rita, Sue and Bob too, kind of, the two of them in a field. And just, but you get the impression again, because Jackie doesn't really look like she's enjoying herself in these moments. So you kind of get the feeling she's just doing this every fortnight for routine, or maybe just to have some sort of feeling. There's definitely no romantic element. You don't get the impression that she doesn't think it's going anywhere. It's almost like it's just something to do every fortnight.
Well, he says to her, doesn't he? He's like, oh, sorry that was a bit fast. Did you, she was like, yeah, earlier. And he's like, all right. Like, I'm not sure she did.
And again, just a performance that you just don't know what, again, the character doesn't give much away, and you're wondering, what is this woman about? What is going on? Yeah, wonderful bit of acting there, I think.
Yeah. And how weird is it to see, I mean, I didn't realise this film was as old as it is. I mean, if it was released in 2006, there's a good chance it was released in 2005. But how strange is it to see people smoking indoors in the pub in Scotland?
Yeah, the pub wasn't even the one that threw me off. It was the cafe.
Yeah.
Had me kind of startled that he finishes his food and then, sparks up a fag reading the paper. That was the one that got me of like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, of course. But yeah, I never thought about in the pub. But you're right. Of course, they do have a couple of cigarettes, but it was very strange. It
was the cafe scene that actually made me go back and check what the year was that it came out, What do you think of Clyde's chat up patter?
Yeah,
not great.
I wasn't going to mention that, and I'm not going to include the clip of that either.
No.
But yeah, his chat up line, well, the first time, obviously, he just does say to her, do I know you? And it's have we met?
Yeah.
When they're at the party. And that's the thing, because obviously she's seen him on CCTV. She's gone to the flat. She started following him. Again, because the film's unraveling, you are thinking she's hiding because he's going to recognise her.
Yeah.
But then she just goes into the cafe and he looks right at her. And that's when I think the audience get to know at the same time Jackie does. He doesn't recognise me. And that's when you're thinking, okay, so have they met before? How does she know him? What's the deal here? And then, of course, she brazenly just goes up to the party later on.
Yeah.
His chat-up lines in the pub, to answer your question, yeah, they're not very nice. I think it's rather vulgar, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. Not very smooth. We haven't not really spoken about Martin Compston. At first, I wasn't sure how big a part he was going to have as wee Stevie. You know, I guess quite an early role for him. It's only like 2 or 3 years after, maybe 3 or 4 years after Sweet 16. He's obviously must be probably in his early 20s by this point. You know, I don't think it was a massive stretch for him. Although he is good in the movie, especially later on. You know, the scene that he's got with Jackie, with Kate Dickie as Jackie after she's staged the rape and got Clyde arrested is really good. You know what I mean? You forget that he's good at playing a menacing wee Ned. Martin Compston, you know what I mean? He really is.
Yeah, I think, again, the way his character kind of goes, you see him, initially you are just thinking he's just this wide little Ned.
Yeah.
And even at the party, you're a bit kind of worried when Jackie forces her way into the lift. And then you can see that he's actually okay. He's all right. And at the party he's fine. Then at the scene where Jackie goes back with a bottle of whiskey and the three of them are sitting there is a little uncomfortable. He's nice and he's fine until the window incident, and then you can kind of see a little twist of him that he's a little bit, you know, the atmosphere's gone.
Yeah.
The pivotal scene for me is the fight in the pub with his dad, and the emotion that he delivers in the car park. It is believable that it's taking Clyde that long to calm him down and to get him kind of sorted. And again, I think it's extremely believable when they go back to the flat and he's basically in his bed, like on the sofa, trying to kind of calm himself down. And I think after such a huge outburst of emotion in that way, you are going to be drained and you are going to be just wanting to go and kind of curl up and lie down like that.
Yeah.
And again, as you say, after the kind of revelation that Jackie has fitted Clyde up for rape, then his performance there with the two of them is very believable, and you do see again they're just kind of dripping the backstory. Then you find out, you know, how they know each other, what they've been into, and then that's when you find out the revelation of why she's doing this.
To come on to the scene where she's staging the rape, like, so, you know, after the sex and she's in the bathroom, I wasn't quite prepared for how graphic that was. You know, like sort of, you know, kind of smearing sperm over her hands, and you know what I mean. And then she doesn't.
Yeah.
She doesn't even run her hands under the tap when she's finished. She just wipes it on the nearest towel.
I had been wondering, because you see it when she's following him through the to the cafe, or initially the laundrette, then the cafe. She picks up a bit of broken glass and puts it in her pocket, and that's when you're thinking, is the intention she's going to go and do him?
She's going to attack him. Yeah. That's what I thought.
Is it to protect himself? Then when she picks up the rock before she goes into the pub, you're thinking, well, my first thought is, well, she's very handy at finding little useful objects scattered around the place to use as weapons. But again, then I'm thinking, okay, she's going to seduce him and then smash his head in with a stone.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. Neither of those things happen. I was very shocked. I mean, okay, first of all, we have an extremely graphic sex scene, which I think I was very surprised at how graphic this scene was. And I did read a little bit of pushback online of people, there was no need to have that level of nudity and performance in the sex scene. But I think you actually did need it because of what happens next.
Yeah, for sure.
And you need to see that. And literally as soon as the words come out of Clyde's mouth, when she says to him, what if I say no? And he says, well, I might just have to force myself. That's instantly, I'm thinking, okay, so she's going to say that he's raped her.
Yeah.
And of course you say when she grabs the condom, instantly you're like, oh my God, she's actually going to do this.
Yeah.
So as you say, when she goes into the bathroom, yes, I was quite surprised at the graphic depiction of her taking the contents and forcing it up and around. But yeah, I guess that's the evidence, because that was my thought. Well, when I'd worked out what she was going to be doing in terms of the rape, I thought, well, he's putting a condom on, so she's not going to have any, kind of thing. And that's when you're seeing her biting him during the sex. You're thinking, oh God, so that's, going to use that as evidence. So yeah, the graphic depiction of that, and then the graphic depiction of her just smacking herself in the face with a rock.
Yeah, which wasn't as bad as what came after it, or before. I can't remember if she hit herself in the face before or after. Yeah, so we find out that the reason that she wants him to go back to jail is because he crashed his car into a bus stop where her husband and daughter were waiting for the bus, and they were both killed because he was intoxicated. I think he was sentenced to 10 years. He only did 6, and she wants him to go back to prison, basically. We find out the reason that he didn't recognise her was because he couldn't look at her in court because he was so ashamed of what he'd done, which again speaks to, I think the sort of layers of Tony Curran's performance as a character. He is remorseful. He's not callous. He's not he's not an entirely bad guy. He's just made some terrible decisions that have landed him in prison and landed him in trouble with Kate Dickie's character.
And I think that's where it kind of switches for me. Before she goes into the bathroom to do what she does, they have sex, and then she says she's got to leave. Yeah. And that's where you instantly, I started to feel sorry for Clyde because of the way he wants her to stay. Yeah. And he's like, did I do something wrong? And then he gets kind of not angry, but
frustrated.
He does say, frustrated, but he doesn't. That's when you kind of realise that, okay, he's not a bad character as such, because he doesn't try and force her to stay. He doesn't try to, he just, as you say, gets frustrated, and that's when he's like, well, fuck off then. Yeah. And that was the instance I started to feel sorry for him.
I didn't hurt you, did I?
Got to go home.
You've got to go home. It's the middle of the night. There's no nice room here. I can't let you go.
Can't stop me either.
I'm not quite sure I know what's going on. What, are you married or something?
I am.
At least let me call you a cab.
I've got a number, I'm fine.
Was it just a shag you wanted then? Aye.
I guess so.
Well, go on, fuck off then. See if I fucking care.
Then, as you say, when you find out what he did, and that speech that he delivers to her at the end, when they're standing by the bus stop, and he says, he was on crack and he lost control of the car. And I think it's the only kind of bit of the film I don't find fully believable, is after the rape, after her fitting him up for rape, she goes back to work, obviously very quickly, and she gets the CCTV tape, because we find out she likes to take the tapes home for some stuff like this. She treats it a bit like Blockbuster. That tape, and it's the tape of her running away from the flats. Yeah. Okay. First of all, that tape wouldn't be in the cupboard. That's evidence in an ongoing rape case. So that's going to be with the police. The second thing is, it's very convenient that his daughter decided to come to the flat just after this had happened. Yeah. That was the only part of the film that I thought was a little bit of a stretch. And I realised that it was seeing the daughter there that effectively leads her to drop the charges, because she realises that the daughter wants to get to know Clyde, and therefore Clyde he's not going to do it if he's in prison. That was the only part I felt was a little bit stretched and felt out with my believability kind of realms.
Yeah, I guess. I suppose it's kind of plot device, isn't it? It's got kind of keep it tidy. I mean, the thing is, like, with these sort of independent, I'm sort of loath to use the phrase kind of arty movies. Sometimes the endings can be quite abrupt. And I was, the scene on the street at the end when she confronts him to talk to him about what happened, we just discussed, and he sort of runs off and gets in the bus. And I thought, right, this is where the film will end, and it'll just be her in her anguish. And then he got off the bus. I was like, oh. And then, there's a kind of, not reconciliation, but a kind of, there's a moment between the two of them. She's, whatever the moment is, it's going to put her in a better place than she was before. And I thought, right, well, that'll be the end of the film now. But then they have that last scene where she goes to her in-laws, and she says, I think we should take his ashes up to Loch Lomond. I think that's where he'd like to be. And the relief for her mother and father-in-law, and then we see her on, but it's actually Saracen Cross, the street at the very end of the film. It's where my granny used to live near there. I recognised it straight away. And she's, they sort of sign off with, she's in a much better place. She says hi to the guy with his new dog. She looks, again, just a testament to Kate Dickie's performance. The all the way through the beginning of the film and throughout her plotting against Clyde, she looks like she's carrying a weight, and then her body language in that last scene, she looks almost happy and relaxed, and you know what I mean. It's I was quite pleased, because you don't often get like a sort of low profile movie like this ending so, especially with a plot like this with such an upbeat ending.
I think it's that being able to confront him, and getting his explanation of events, and maybe seeing the sorrow that he feels. Although he is a bit, in his speech, he's a bit like, what do you want me to do?
It's
almost like it's done.
He says shit happens every day, doesn't he?
Yeah, that maybe a little bit, use your words maybe slightly better there.
What do you want? I'm sorry. What can I say?
It's not all right.
But shit happens every day, that's life.
My husband's name is John. My little girl's name is Sorcha.
But it is almost a relief for her, and as you say, when she goes to see the in-laws and discover, because obviously previously we've seen her cuddling up in bed with these two urns. So that's when you're thinking, okay, so right. So for her to be able to put them to peace at Loch Lomond. And as you say, when she's walking down the street, it's she's completely different. She's upbeat. And I think seeing the guy with the new dog, it's almost a metaphor for like it's new beginnings.
Yeah.
It's it's new life. It's a new start.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that ties in with the beginning, because when you see the dog getting carried away, just around about the time she sees Clyde, isn't it, for maybe the first time?
I think it's a little later. I think it's before she starts her, she starts to carry out her plan. I think that's when we see the dog being sort of carried out and put in the back car. And that's a good observation, actually. I hadn't really realised the importance of the dog.
Well, I wonder if that is the dog is sick in the scenes we're seeing, and that it's almost a metaphor for her life of she's going through misery. Really.
Yeah.
Then it's like when the dog dies, that's almost when she starts her kind of revenge mission, and
she's got purpose again.
Then once it's done, and then it's kind of a new beginning with a new dog. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'm looking too much into that.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a good observation. Did you notice? I think early on when we see the guy with the dog outside the shop, and there's one of those, those sort of billboards that they have outside newsagents with that day's headline. There was a headline that said Dumbarton man in black pudding scare. Fascinated to know what was going on there.
Well, that's my archetypal Scottish moment ruined.
Oh, sorry.
That was it's fine. That's exactly what I put down, because I made a note of that because I found it was so hilarious, and I thought that'll be the kind of story we would cover on the Swally.
Yeah.
I'd be desperate to know what that was, what the black pudding scare was. Yeah. No, but as you say, I found the ending very satisfying.
Yeah.
Because you kind of felt upbeat, and genuinely, because you just spent the previous hour and 46 minutes in this woman's misery and wondering what the fuck was going on, and you really cared for her as well. When she's at that party and she's kind of snooping around the flat, you're genuinely terrified for her, and you are genuinely thinking, what the fuck are you doing? This isn't sensible. So you're really tied in with her emotions, and you're very tied in with the performance. So to see her smiling and happy at the end of the film makes you happy, and you're so pleased for her, and you just want to be right, that's it, just go on, get on with your life.
The other thing that I enjoyed at the ending was that cover of Love Will Tear Us Apart, and I was trying to find out, did you happen to find out who the performer is doing it?
I did. It's Honeyroot. It was an ambient dance collaboration. It was Glenn Gregory from Heaven 17.
Right, okay. Yeah, it's a nice version of it.
Yeah, it was very good. Kind of fitting song to end the cover on.
Yeah.
The cover. the film on as well.
Yeah. So, shall we put Red Road through? Sorry for stealing your thunder on your archetypal Scottish moment. But shall we put Red Road through the Swally Awards?
Yeah, why not? Let's run it through our awards and see what we can do. So yeah, what have we got first?
Since we've done your archetypal Scottish moment, I guess we'll do mine. I had 2 for archetypal Scottish moment. I had when they were in the party at Clyde's flat and they all start singing "Here We Fucking Go" along with the dance song. There's something very Scottish about that. But the one that I picked, which I think is probably even more Scottish, is the sleeveless parka jacket that Natalie Press's character April was wearing when her and Stevie arrive at the party. So Stevie's got his warm jacket and everything on with a dog up his juke, and April's got a sleeveless, and she's got bare arms underneath her sleeveless parka. I thought there's something quite Scottish about that.
So you think that's very Scottish and very hard, kind of not having a warm jacket on a cold winter's evening?
Yeah, I was surprised when we discovered that she was English when she starts talking to when she tips the dog food onto the floor of Clyde's flat for the wee dog and has a chat with Jackie.
I mean, that's a very uncomfortable scene as well when the two of them are in the kitchen. It's again, you're kind of hooked, but you feel the awkwardness in that performance, and you're really kind of like, oh god, what's going to happen here? Wonderful. We can take that. I think that can maybe trump my black pudding scare.
Okay, so the Jake McQuillan Your Tease Oot Award, what did you have for that?
The only thing really is the fight in the pub between Stevie and his dad, and it's a fair old fight, but there's not really a huge amount in the film. The only other thing really is when Stevie attacks Jackie, but you know what I mean, when he
threatens her,
is there in her bedroom. But that's the only. But I would have to give it to the fight in the pub.
Yeah, that's why I had Compo's dad. I've written Compo's dad because it's my new nickname for Martin Compston. Wee Compo. All right, no shortage of options here. The Francis Begbie Award for gratuitous swearing.
What did you go for?
I had the moment when Jackie goes to help Wee Compo's dad up and he spits "fuck off, you cow" at her, and she shouts back at him, "you fuck off." I like those moments.
Oh, okay.
What'd you have?
I went with Compo, and one of his lines.
Right.
I'm not going to start calling him Compo. I'll let you have that as your little pet name for him. It's when he's in the lift with Jackie and his girlfriend, and he asks, Clyde, and Jackie says yes, and he kind of smiles, and he says, "Aye, what woman round here doesn't? He's a right dirty cunt."
You going to the party?
Yeah,
Who invited you?
I know Clyde.
What woman round here doesn't? He's a dirty cunt.
I just thought, nice. Either that or when he describes Clyde as he's not bad for a ginger cunt. I thought that was the two kind of deliveries that I found the funniest and I quite liked the best.
This episode of the Culture Swally brought to you by the letter C. Only really one option for this one, but the Ewan McGregor Award for gratuitous nudity.
Well, yeah,
got to be
just Kate Dickie. No more said.
Yeah. This one's an interesting one. The James Cosmo Award for being in everything Scottish. It's a kind of a toss-up between Wee Compo and Tony Curran, I suppose. Maybe even Kate Dickie.
I would say so. I had it between Dickie and Curran, purely because I didn't want to give it to Compston, because he has been a lot, but I think we've given it to him recently.
Yeah.
Dickie and Curran, I did have a look. They've got very interesting in terms of their career. Curran was in a lot of Scottish stuff, but then he did seem to kind of move off, and he was in a lot of American things for quite a period of time. But then he does seem to have come back a little bit and has been doing more Scottish things as he's gotten in his advancing years. Whereas Kate Dickie, again, seems to have been in quite a few Scottish things, and then she'll go away and do something quite big.
Yeah.
And then she'll come back and do some Scottish things. So it's almost like she never forgets her roots. So she does seem to, things like, she must have been like doing like Game of Thrones or something, but then she'll come back and do filth. Or she does kind of seem to be fleeting about and is in quite a lot. So I was actually really torn between Dickie and Curran.
Yeah.
Sounds like a comedy double act.
Dickie and Curran, yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking at her. So she's in... You and I were catching up with our friend on Saturday night, and he mentioned a movie called The Green Knight that he's just watched on Amazon Prime. She's in that. It's quite a recent movie. She was also in his favourite Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi. He's spoken a lot about how much he enjoyed it. It was quite surprising because it didn't go down all that well with Star Wars fans, but he said he really liked it. She was in Prometheus, the Ridley Scott sort of Alien prequel. Was it a prequel? Was it not a prequel? It's no one's sure.
So she does go and make, large films, but then she does come back and do Scottish things.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like Scottish. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily just because we are Scottish, but I think there's not like a endless release schedule of Scottish movies. You know what I mean? I wouldn't go as far to say they're few and far between, but they don't come out regularly. So I think the sort of hit rate when I say a hit rate, I mean like a good film. There's certainly a lot more good movies than there are bad. And I think it's an interesting place to make a film because there's Scotland has a lot of unique qualities about it that I was listening to the Rewatchables today. They've done Train Spotting, which I was really surprised to see. The Rewatchables being an American podcast, and to hear them talking about a sort of fascination that developed in them when they were younger about Scotland and Scottish culture and the way they see us, and it was all kind of, I don't know, I felt quite proud the way they were talking about us and stuff, so I think a lot of these Scottish, even, it's been a while since he's done it, but, even Ewan McGregor arguably was almost at the height of his fame when he came back and filmed Young Adam with Peter Mullen and Tilda Swinton, which is set in Scotland, it's set in the Glasgow, on the Clyde Canal, so I think there's certainly precedent there.
Yeah, but you'll see actors coming back all the time, as you say, like Brian Cox or Peter Mullen.
Yeah, Brian Cox. Yeah.
They will make big Hollywood films or TV, but then they will come back and do a Scottish film in Scotland or a sitcom about a burger tycoon.
Who's not a punter. Yeah. Okay, so the last one then is our Sean Connery Awards for who won the movie. I feel this might be polarising.
Oh, really? Why? Are you going to give it to the Red Road Flats?
No, I was going to give it to Kate Dickie, just for all the reasons I've sort of mentioned, perhaps ad nauseum earlier in the podcast. I just think I think Tony Curran is fantastic in it as well, but I don't know, I think just in terms of, just her whole performance, like I mentioned earlier, body language, everything, I think she's obviously just sort of given herself completely to it, and I think it really pays off. I thought she was brilliant.
Yeah, completely. Kate Dickie.
Yeah, you agreed.
Without a doubt. No question. Performance is phenomenal. You genuinely feel the tension. Mm-hmm. You genuinely feel the nerves of when she's following him, and when I say that it's the scenes in the party as well. You are really on the edge of your seat, wondering what is going to be happening with her, and you can feel the tension within her as well. Mm-hmm. And even the later scenes, you can just feel the emotion. And as I say, to be able to convey the fact that at the end of the film, you're feeling happy that she's happier. Yeah. It's a wonderful performance from Kate Dickie. So no, for me, completely, she wins the film.
All right. Well, if you want to watch Red Road, you can find it on iTunes and possibly even Netflix, depending on where you live in the world. So, I mean, if you haven't seen it, we've maybe ruined it for you now. You should have stopped watching you should have stopped listening when Nicky told you to earlier in the podcast. But if you want to go back and watch it again, then you can find it in all these places. So, it is your turn. Is it going to be a wee compo quadruple?
No, Martin Compston is not going to be on the Swally anytime soon, I don't think. Who knows? I don't know. We'll see if he crops up in something that we're covering. The next episode that we record, when it releases, it's going to be released the week before Halloween. So we've only really done one horror film so far on the Swally, being The Wicker Man. So I thought it was time that we should probably do something else to get everyone into the spirit of Halloween. Yeah. So I would like to join Sean Pertwee and Kevin McKidd and have a look at the 2002 film Dog Soldiers.
Brilliant. Oh yeah, brilliant. That's good show. I haven't seen that since it came out, so it'll almost be like watching it for the first time.
I'm exactly the same. I watched it when it came out on DVD and I haven't watched it since. So it is going to be very interesting to see what it's like, because I've forgotten all about it.
Cool.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to the Swally. If you would like to get in touch with us on anything, any reason, you can follow us on Instagram at Culture Swally Pod, or you can follow us on Twitter at Swally Pod. Or if you have seen anything in the news that you'd like us to discuss, or if there's anything you would like us to cover, or if you have any feedback or anything, then you can drop us an email on cultureswally@gmail.com. And please feel free to leave us a rating or a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help grow the pod. And Greg, we have a website as well.
We do have a website. You can find us at cultureswallyblog.com, where you can find links to all our episodes, links links to some of our favourite news stories and other bits and bobs that you might find interesting. So come and check us out.
Fantastic. Right, let's go off into the woods and get our dog soldiers on.
All right, until next time.
Till next time, Greg.